I'm Antoinette Zloty, and I'm your host for Transitions. Welcome back again. I'm very thankful that you're joining us. Today, I have a number of very interesting guests for you to meet. First up will be Art Angus, and he will share his story with us. And he will be followed by Trevor Thompson, who is a technician with Rana Respiratory Care Group. And finally, we'll have Olson Jarvis joining and speaking with me about his role as a respiratory therapist. So we hope to get everybody together as well at the end of the show, so please stay with us. But first, I'd like you to meet Art. So Art, could you tell us a little bit about your story as to what kind of things you did before you came on the home oxygen program?
Well, from my working days, you mean, and that?
Yeah.
That, well, yes, it was, first off, we all smoked. That was one thing that we all smoked. I was born in the mid-20s, and when you got about 14 years of age, you started smoking.
Yeah.
And you rolled your own. There was no filters or anything. So I believe that is a real detriment. Smoking is a real detriment,
Yes.
as I found out.
Yes.
I think that is part of my problem. Plus, working conditions. There was no such thing as hazardous waste handling material. They knew nothing about that until I was just about ready to retire. That, I think, has an effect also. And that has been greatly corrected. But as time went by and as older I got, I first went on to puffers and various types of that, and eventually I wound up on oxygen.
On oxygen. So how many years has it been since
This
you
will
were
be
on?
my third year for oxygen.
Third year. And you were saying that around your apartment you seem to be able to walk short distances.
Oh yes,
but
oh yes. Oh yes, I can walk short distances. I have to have oxygen before I'm doing anything, particularly when I'm any arm movement. It seems that I have to really have the oxygen then.
Yeah.
Just walking around is not too bad, but not a long distance.
I see. So when you were a younger person, did you also do some sports? Like, were you involved in athletics at all?
Well, that's to a certain amount, yes. But then, once I got into, I was in the Air Force, Royal Canadian Air Force, and after I got out of that, of course, you got to working, and there really wasn't that much time for sports.
I see.
But
I see. So now, are you involved in any programs to help you with your physical stamina or anything like that?
no, I just have the oxygen, yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So your recreation's pretty well changed.
It has completely.
Yeah.
We used to, matter of fact, after we retired, we used to bowl a lot, and we also went dancing at least once a week.
Well, that's nice.
Oh yes, we did that. And then we volunteered with a couple of different organizations and that, but then all that gradually came to an end.
Yes.
And now really we don't, well, of course we don't volunteer anymore. And recreation, dancing and bowling, that's gone by the wayside now.
And how did you find family and friends and their support? Like, where did you find a lot of support in the transition from a person who was more active to a person who was less active, more home-based?
See, most of the people we were associating with recreationally were people of our own age.
Yeah.
So we all, you know, these programs all kind of went together. We kind of all, you know, stopped together, you know, together.
Around the same time, I see. So are they some people now that you find really supportive to
Oh,
you?
yes.
And, you know, are these people who are related to you or friends? Or
Friends.
Or, yeah?
Oh, and related too, but
Too?
we don't have very many relatives in Winnipeg anymore. But we got some real good friends.
Friends, yes.
And we all live in the same apartment building.
So that's very good then.
Oh,
I
yes.
think that's a very, very healthy way to live your life, to have a good social connection.
Yes,
and
yes. There, and we all live close together in the apartment building.
Very good.
Yeah,
I see your smile, so thank you. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I'll have you back later in the show and we can chat a little bit more.
Oh, thank you very much. It
Okay.
was nice having a talk with you.
Yeah, thank you, Art. Welcome back to Transitions. I'm here with Trevor, and Trevor is a technician with Rana Respiratory Care Group. Trevor, you brought in some really interesting looking pieces of equipment here. Can you explain what this is all about?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll start over here on the left. This is called an oxygen concentrator. They've came a long way in the last few years. Definitely a lot quieter and a lot smaller than they used to be. It's typically the primary source people would use in home when needing oxygen on a continuous basis. So basically what it does is it filters out the room air, takes the nitrogen and argon out of the air and leaves you with just the oxygen. What I usually tell people is it's like having another person over. So you're sitting having coffee with someone, they're taking the oxygen out of the air. That's exactly what the machine does. It's just running it to the person via oxygen tubing and cannula.
I see. So is this pretty heavy or?
They weigh just around 30 pounds. They're mainly stationary. They are on wheels. So you can move them around a little bit, but you can put a maximum of 57 feet of tubing on the machine. And people typically would put it somewhere central in the home so that they can kind of walk everywhere they need to go. And we usually help try and find the best location in the home to put that.
So was there a reduction in the size and over time? Like were these really huge?
Yeah, for sure. You know, they used to weigh around 65, 70 pounds when I first started about 15 years ago. So they've definitely came a long way. They're half the size, and the reliability and the volume of them has really came a long way too. They're a lot quieter than they used to be. So they're very nice.
That's good.
Yeah.
So what else do you have for us to see?
Well, over here we got portable systems. So this is something people would use at home, the oxygen concentrator. Here we've got more of a portable based system. So what you see in the middle here is kind of the newest technology. It's called a portable oxygen concentrator. So it's very similar to the main unit here, or the big unit. It's just a small portable unit. They do work a little bit differently. They work in something called a pulse flow. So they only release oxygen from the machine when you breathe in, versus the concentrator, which provides a constant flow. Okay, very handy little machines. They weigh only around 7 pounds, nice and light, little shoulder strap. People take those lots when they go out. They can last up to 9 hours as well. So they're depending on your prescription, and they do a very good job, nice and quiet, and they've came a long way as well in technology. Over here a little further, you've got portable oxygen cylinders. So we have a wide variety of sizes. We just brought a couple here. One is a little larger that you'd see people pulling around on the little two-wheel cart that we have here, and then something smaller that's a little more portable to carry, very light, about 3.5 pounds. Okay, and then you got a little sort of a backpack that people can carry them around in. Up in the front here, we got a couple different styles of regulators. So this is a standard flow regulator, so it provides a continuous flow for oxygen from the cylinders, and the stems on the cylinders are the same, so it fits on both sizes, okay? And then this piece here is called an oxygen conserving device. What it does is it does a similar to what the portable machine does. It only releases oxygen from the cylinders when you breathe in. Okay, so it makes the cylinder's duration last quite a bit longer, up to 5 times. Okay, now both the portable machines and the oxygen conserving device are prescription required devices. So you do have to have a prescription and be tested to make sure that that works properly for you.
I see. So prescriptions sometimes mean that the benefits are covered, or in some case partly covered. What is the cost normally? Is it covered, or?
Well, depending on medical criteria, so the doctor would determine that, your medical criteria. There are programs available in our province and in Manitoba that people can get a lot of the services and things covered. There's also our PharmaCare program, which is a Manitoba drug program. Lots of things can be claimable there as well. So there's 2 options usually when people come home from hospital. One of them would be that they come home meeting the criteria medically for a home oxygen program that the province runs. Either that, or they can come home with a private prescription and claim certain things through our drug program.
I see.
Yep.
So essentially oxygen becomes a drug, or is a drug.
Is a drug, yeah. It's a prescribed drug.
A prescribed
so, yeah.
drug, yeah.
Yeah, it's
and
very
a lot that we take for granted. You breathe in oxygen and you just don't think about it. It's just so automatic.
Yeah, exactly.
And then here it is. Some people actually have to have an additional amount in their environment, right? Because that's what this is doing. Do you find that people sort of in the community, they pick up on the fact that it is necessary, and then they adapt to it, just like grabbing your purse and running out the door? Like, do they adapt to it?
Definitely does.
Yeah?
It's a definite transition. It takes time for sure. People, and that's why people usually have a good support network. Us as a company, we really try and support people in getting them using it. The more they use it, if the doctor prescribed it for them, the better it will be for them. It's definitely a beneficial thing for them if they've been prescribed. Yeah, for sure.
And this is the newest piece of equipment, eh?
That's right. Yeah. This is a very small 6-pound portable oxygen concentrator. It's one of the newest pieces of equipment out, and one of the best technologies too, we find.
So you do maintenance though too, right? Because it's not enough to just go and buy something like this. Is it better to have it through a company that will make sure that it's in working order? And
yeah, when you do purchase stuff privately, there is a warranty on the equipment.
Oh, okay.
However, there is maintenance that does need to be done. Filter changes, especially with this machine at home. There's maintenance that we do with them. We check them to make sure that the oxygen that's coming from the machine, the purity check is done regularly to make sure it's working properly. And then there's intake filters that do need to be changed as well.
Well, so that's quite a lot, and it's really an adjustment for people. So I'm glad that there are people like you, Trevor, out there helping people to adjust. And I'm going to have you back a little later after we talk to Olson Jarvis. And so stick around. We'll be right back, folks. We're here with Olson Jarvis, and Olson, tell me a bit about your role as a therapist.
My name is Olson Jarvis. I am a respiratory therapist, or registered respiratory therapist with the Manitoba Association of Respiratory Therapists, and our job, a lot of people don't know about our job, but what we do is a number of things in the hospital. One of them is that our main thing is that we put people onto breathing machines when they are unable to breathe, and we work with a team of doctors and nurses to do that. Other roles we have, we counsel patients with COPD and or asthma on how to manage their disease. We also work in a sleep lab where we'd be assessing patients as well as fitting them to their machines so that they can breathe well overnight. We also attend any code blues, where we rescue people who have heart attack, who have cardiac arrests as well as respiratory arrests. We also are involved in putting people onto the home oxygen program.
So the home oxygen program is there for children and adults? Like, how is that managed with the kids versus the adults?
Well, there are qualifications for patients throughout Manitoba to get onto the home oxygen program. It's actually called the home oxygen concentration, home concentrated oxygen program, HCOP. And the qualifications basically is for adults is you need to have a PO2, a pressure of oxygen in your blood less than 60, or you have to show that you can walk further on oxygen. Another thing is you can go to the sleep lab and they'll do some testing on you, and then when they do the testing on you, they'll determine whether or not you need oxygen throughout the night. The other way you can qualify is through the palliative program, where they will give you oxygen when as a palliative patient. Yeah.
So the transition to using oxygen then is a major transition, I would think, for a lot of people. It could be probably pretty devastating to hear that now you have to be reliant on a machine to help you to breathe. But on the other hand, it saves your life by transitioning to using the machine, right?
Yeah, for actually, it's funny, for most people, I wouldn't say it's devastating, but
No?
but they are more restricted in their lifestyle, because they'll always have to have some sort of portable form of oxygen, that like what Trevor demonstrated. The other thing is, when you have to fly, it presents a bit of an issue, because you have to call the airlines and tell them that you're going to fly and that you need oxygen, and you have to arrange your oxygen when you get there, because they only allow you to carry so much. So there is a bit of change in lifestyle for patients.
I see. Oh, okay. So could you just comment on some of the main causes and a little bit of the statistics around how many people, say in Manitoba, are currently in receipt of this kind of therapy?
Right now, there's about 1,600 people in Manitoba on home oxygen, and about 1,000 in the city of Winnipeg. And mostly the causes are due to COPD, where 90% of it is from smoking. There are other causes, like heart failure is another cause of needing home oxygen, as well as occupational exposures. That's another cause, where you get people with asbestosis or silicosis. So there's a number of different things that may cause a patient to need oxygen at the end of life.
But you had mentioned something about genetic predisposition as well, among a small percentage of the population, though, eh?
Yeah, about 1% of people have something called alpha-1 antitrypsin. It's actually a genetic disease that's found in about, I'd say about 1% of the population. It's a little bit higher in the patient with COPD, because if you smoke and you have alpha-1 antitrypsin, you actually get worse. You get worse COPD earlier in life, and that requires you to maybe have oxygen a little earlier.
So this is the services then for people are pretty uniform across Manitoba. This isn't just unique to the Winnipeg area. This is Manitoba-wide, right?
Right. The Manitoba, the oxygen program is province-wide, and each health authority manages the different oxygen, different oxygen delivery for each of their regions. So they are in charge of kind of like the budget for their own regions. And but the qualifications still remain the same: low PO2, needing to have a sleep study for overnight oxygen, as well as needing to have a walking test in order to have exertional oxygen.
So I have one last question for you before we break and then come back with everybody who has been on the show so far. How many years does it take to become a therapist?
Oh, to become a respiratory therapist, it's 4 years after high school, your first year in University 1, and then you spend 3 years in the Faculty of Medical Rehab, 2 years in class, and your last year is spent on the wards working with patients.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us, and I'd like to invite you back with everybody once we have a quick break. So thanks for joining us, Olson.
Welcome, glad to.
Welcome back to Transitions. I have all three of my guests today with me, and we've been talking about technology and about the services and so on. So what we're going to do is just talk a little bit about what we see as being the most significant change that's happened to people who face respiratory issues, and also what advice maybe each of us may have for people who are supporting individuals who have respiratory issues. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Art. Art, what do you think is the most significant change in this field?
I think the oxygen concentrator is, for me anyway, is probably the most significant thing at the moment anyway. It gives you much more mobility. You have a period of time. If you go out with it fully charged, it's good for about 9 hours. And it has the adapter in your vehicle that you can plug it in, which gives you even a longer period of time. And with tanks, you can't do that. You have the small tanks, you'd have to take too many of them with you, and the big tanks you can't convey around. And the concentrator is, to me, is really the thing right now anyway.
That's great. That's in terms of technology. Now, what about, do you have any quick sort of tips for family and friends?
Well, I would give tips to young people. First, don't smoke.
Oh, I see.
That would be the first thing.
Good advice.
But family and friends are very important, because like for me, I have got really good friends that they're right there to assist me, or they're always there with me or assisting me. Unfortunately, we have no family here in Winnipeg, but so friends we have.
That's wonderful.
And friends are excellent.
Great. And how about yourself, Olson? Do you have anything you want to add to what Art said?
Yes, the research for the benefits of home oxygen, actually some of it was done here in Winnipeg with Dr. Antoinette, and the research continues to show different benefits for different patient groups, and we'll see things continue to evolve. And one of the big advantage of having the portable oxygen is exercise, and we've found that patients who can maintain their strength, which the portable oxygen allows them to do, is really beneficial to them, because they can actually do more in a day.
Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. And how about yourself?
Well, I think Art and Olson kind of summed it up very well there. You know, Art and I were talking just before we sat down here about, you know, how he came down here and how he got here, and he sort of picked up and went, and that's a big change from things in the past. And you know, the batteries and equipment are changing all the time, and it's just getting better and better. And the big thing too is the awareness, public awareness, things like we're doing today, things like Olson was saying with the education of exercise and things like that. It's just it's starting to change for the good, that people are becoming aware. So that's a very good thing.
That's wonderful. And I did a little bit of reading as well about the field, and it appears that there are fewer hospitalizations too due to the home oxygen program, because now, you know, maybe people can go home. Before, if they didn't have oxygen at home, they'd have to be in more of a facility setting. So I think that that's certainly you know, a positive for from what I could see, because then you're close to your family, you can get the kind of supports that you need, as opposed to the family then having to go to a facility to see you. So I think that the home oxygen program in of itself came about you know, a number of years ago, and it's good to see it, and hopefully it'll be strengthened even more in Manitoba and beyond. That would really be good to see that. And so is there any one last little bit of advice that anybody wanted to give to people out there? I think you said it earlier, especially to young people. You're saying don't smoke. And the smoking cessation programs are out there. So listen to Art, folks. He's telling you don't smoke, even though, Art, you have many years more than all of us here, but still. Very nice of you to come on the show. Nice of you to be here as well, Trevor.
Thank you.
And Olson. It's been a pleasure speaking with all of you.
It was nice to meet everybody today. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you.
I thank you very much, Antoinette.
Thank you.